Google has decided to shift its Nexus range from mid-range to high-end. It started with the Nexus 9, a tablet built in conjunction with HTC, but the results were mixed. The strategy has now been applied to its phones, starting with the Motorola-made Nexus 6. It's not hard to figure out that it's made by Motorola either. The Nexus 6 is just like a Moto X that's hit a teenage growth spurt. It looks and feels a little awkward and bulky. Individually and on paper, all the elements that bring it together, design, screen, camera, battery life, performance, are strong. But there are flaws to each that make the Nexus 6 miss the mark and fail to hit the heights reached by its competitors. There's no getting away from it. The Nexus 6 is massive, wider than an iPhone 6 Plus and taller than a Samsung Galaxy Note 4. This is a giant among giants, and that means the Nexus 6 is a tricky phone to handle. Is the Nexus 6 too big? That's the key question. The curved matte plastic bag rests well in your palm, but you can't stop either hand coming to the rescue when trying to handle this beast. Your brain keeps telling you to get both your mitts involved. Some people will have the same issue with other, slightly smaller phones, but Apple and Samsung offer some one-handed use assistance, whether through software or just by virtue of being that little bit slimmer and thinner. It's not just the Nexus 6's width that causes issues. The bottom screen bezel is less than 1 centimeter thick. You won't often hear me complaining about thin bezels, but getting to the soft keys and the bottom of the screen means you really need to scratch to reach them. This becomes even more of an issue if you're left-handed. All the physical buttons are located on the right-hand side of the Nexus 6 within easy reach of your right-hand thumb. If you're a lefty though, you'll need to stretch your index finger around the phone, and to do that you'll need to hold it higher up. This makes it nearly impossible for your left thumb to get to the soft keys without juggling the phone down. It's a tricky maneuver, only helped by the phone's decent grippiness. Okay, so I've established that the Nexus 6 isn't for one-handed use unless you're particularly needy paws. But what about the rest of the design? The Nexus 6 bucks the trend of previous Nexus phones. This is a high-end device aimed at taking on the might of Samsung and Apple, not a low-cost mid-range Android. While last year's Nexus 5 and its predecessor, the Nexus 4, offered fantastic value, they came with limitations. Battery life, design and camera were compromised to keep costs and therefore the price down. Plastic was the order of the day, not so for the Nexus 6. From the front, the Nexus 6 is a handsome slab of glass raised with front-facing stereo speakers, one above, one below the screen. The gaps in the speaker lead to the lint and fluff getting stuck into them, but that's nothing a quick glow or silver paper can't sort out. The Nexus 6 still uses plastic to cover the back, but it's hard plastic, not the soft touch type of the Nexus 5. It feels thick and sturdy, much better than the thin plastic removable back covers on some phones. A metal frame runs all the way around the Nexus 6, punctuated only by the nano SIM card tray, 3.5mm headphone jack, micro USB port, and 8 thin pieces of plastic dotted around the edge. These let the phone signal out, but also add to the phone's looks without making it too fussy. The Nexus logo on the rear is more than a little bit bling, particularly when coupled with the silver Motorola logo just above it. To make matters worse, the 13MP camera comes surrounded by a napped clear plastic ring that also covers the dual LED flashes on the left and the right below that plastic. It's nowhere near as elegant as the metallic ring around the HTC's built Nexus 9 camera. Regardless of a few suspect design decisions, the 6-inch Nexus 6 is well built and good looking. It's just a little too large to handle. If you want a phone that you can use with impunity on the beach or pool, then look towards the Sony Xperia Z3, the Galaxy S5 which I reviewed, you could check the link in the description, or the HTC Desire I. This Nexus phablet 6-inch screen, 5.96 to be precise, is stunning. It uses AMOLED technology like the Samsung Galaxy phones, as opposed to LCD used on the iPhone 6 Plus. The resolution matches the Galaxy Note 4 and LG G3 with a Retina popping 2560 by 1440. That means it's sharp, pin sharp in fact. Things get better if you switch the adaptive display, which automatically changes settings such as saturation on the fly to cinema mode. Unfortunately, the Nexus 6 doesn't offer you the option of tweaking individual settings or even just switching adaptive display off. Whether this is a big turn off or not depends on your preferences and the phone you're currently using. You might find the colors too garish if you think of switching from high-end LCD phone, but not an issue if you're on an AMOLED Galaxy S3, Note 2, or even an S4. I'm a pretty big fan of front-facing speakers at androguru.com, and even the staff here feels that the Nexus 6 doesn't disappoint. It's not just about having a good set of lungs. The speakers on the Nexus 6 offer solid clarity and warmth with little distortion even at full volume. The boom sound audio on the HTC One M8 still has the edge in terms of quality, but the Nexus 6 isn't far off. It's much better than the phablet competition. Still, if you want to listen to music, it's well worth using a decent pair of earphones, some noise cancellation earphones from Sony, or different kinds of other headphones or earphones that you could check out in my reviews on YouTube. Voice calls sound clear on both ends, thanks to 4 noise cancelling microphones and Crystal Talk software to help conversations sound as clear as a bell. Nexus phones and tablets have never had micro SD slots for expansion, and the Nexus 6 doesn't buck that trend. Instead, you need to pay for your storage up front. The standard version, which is 32GB built-in, but you can also get the Nexus 6 in a 64GB model. Currently, the latter version proves illusory. When it comes to connectivity, the Nexus 6 includes dual-band Wi-Fi, 4G, slim port compatible micro USB, and Bluetooth 4.1. It also comes with key-enabled charging. Unlike previous Nexus phones, the Nexus 6 packs a cutting-edge quad-core Snapdragon 805 processor running at a whopping 2.7 GHz and supports that 3GB RAM. That's the same configuration as the Note 4, one of the fastest phones of 2014. The benchmark results are even faster than its Samsung competitors. The Nexus 6 scores a huge 23,735 on 3D Mark's Ice Storm Unlimited and an impressive 3249 on Geekbench 3. That's 18% and 5% faster respectively when compared to the Note 4. And that means the Nexus 6 is a powerhouse. It's also fair, a bit faster than the iPhone 6 Plus in terms of benchmarks. In day-to-day use, it's snappy. Apps open quickly and there's no lag between the vanilla Android 5.0 lollipop homepages. I've experienced aggressive slowdown in some games, though with GD Racing 2 in particular proving unplayable. This is a game that runs like butter on the iPhone 6 Plus and occasionally shutters on the Note 4. So I'm not sure if the issue is with the Nexus 6 hardware or is Android 5.0 related. If the issues do come down to the software, then they should be resolved, as more app makers optimize their games for latest version of Android. I'd normally take vanilla Android over the layers other manufacturers such as HTC and Samsung slap on top. That's because the user interface skins can impact performance, rarely add much. It's too often a case of gimmick before function. Apple realized that it struggled to reach certain sections of the iPhone 6 Plus screen because of its size, an added feature that drops the display halfway to make search bars and app icons more accessible. Samsung has not added 1 but 3 features to the Note 4 to make it more thumb-friendly, including the handy side key panel. The Nexus 6 has nada. I'd give an inch of the screen for a nifty trick to make Google's phone easier to use, but then I wouldn't need it. In all of other aspects, Android 5.0 Lollipop is a big step forward for the OS. The new design called Material looks far more contemporary. It's sleek and slick and ready to come to blows with pretty boys iOS 8 and Windows Phone. The soft navigation keys are now simple shapes, while real-time shadows add some depth to what's on display. It's not often that I can say that Android pinches ideas from iOS. It's usually the other way around. But Google has added some features to Lollipop that Apple's had for a while. These include the new lock screen notifications and easy access to flashlight, a handy app where we can't believe has eluded stock Android for so long. Behind the scenes, Android 5.0 does things very differently. It's been built from the ground up as a new 64-bit operating system. The larger number of bits means some parts of the phone, like memory registers, work more efficiently and can therefore boost performance. It also supports more than 3 GB of RAM, meaning Android is now ready for the phones of the future. On paper, the camera on the Nexus 6 sounds like a winner. With 13MP sensor, OIS, optical image stabilization, and a dual LED flash, you'd expect some impressive shots. And in ideal conditions, you can get them. Cameras have been a strong point of Nexus phones, and that was forgivable when they packed top performance and screen specs into a great value package. The Nexus 6 isn't cheap though. It costs almost as much as any other flagship phones in the market, so you need to be more critical of its camera. Give it a bright sunny day and it will perform with plot. The shutter is fast enough and images are detailed thanks to the high megapixel count. In less than perfect conditions, however, the Nexus 6 camera struggles. It can take age to focus, where the Galaxy Note 4 and iPhone 6 Plus shoot instantly, thanks to a faster face detection autofocus. 4K is still in infancy. The Nexus 6 can shoot in ultra high definition format, 30 frames per second. It also features dual recording, so you can insert yourself in a video you're taking. Video quality is solid in both 4K and 1080, although you don't get any slick tricks such as slow motion capture. A 2 megapixel camera on the front takes care of selfies and video calling duties. It does the job, but won't rock your world if you're into taking photos yourself. A chunky 3220 mAh battery hides behind the non-removable back and powers that huge high-resolution screen. That's exactly the same size as the battery in the Galaxy Note 4, although the Samsung's phone stamina is better. In my standard test of playing a video on loop until the phone dies, I just got over 10 hours of continuous use. That's almost an hour less than the lower resolution iPhone 6 Plus managed and 2 hours less than the Galaxy Note 4. That test isn't real world though. It just gives a like for a like comparison. The test results are reflected in normal use. The Nexus 6 has solid staying power. It's not just quite like the Galaxy Note 4 level. All three have outstanding stamina, a great deal more than you would get from the likes of Moto X, iPhone 6 or Nexus 5. Motorola has taken advantage of the Quick Charge 2.4 feature on the Snapdragon 805 processor to make the Nexus 6 a speedy charger indeed. You can get 6 hours of use from a 15-minute blast, and it takes less than 2 hours to charge fully. That's a little less than the iPhone 6 Plus, but around 10 minutes more to the Note 4, which uses the same quick charge tech manages. Should you buy the Nexus 6? Can you handle the size? That's the question. I just keep going back to the fact that this phone is just that bigger than other tablets. This makes it nearly impossible to use one-handed for any length of time or during costly commute. If you want a phone with a large screen, I'd recommend either the iPhone 6 Plus or the Galaxy Note 4. The Note 4 would have Android 5.0 lollipop soon. It has a great battery life, a better camera, the same screen resolution, and comes with added bonus of the S Pen. It's better all round. That's not to say that the Nexus 6 is a bad phone. Far from it. At £500 SIM-free, it's most certainly high-end, but still more than £100 cheaper than most of its direct rivals, which it closely matches in most respects. There are also some cheaper phones that deserve serious consideration. The Huawei SM Mate has a 6-inch screen and offers many of the same benefits as the Nexus 6. I bet in a less desirable package for just £400. Then there's the Nexus 6's stepbrother, the Moto X. It looks almost identical, but comes with a much more manageable 5.2-inch screen and costs £100 less. Google and Motorola have attempted to move from the low-cost Nexus phones made by the LG to something more premium. They succeeded, but haven't gone far enough to play with the big boys in a competitive private market. The Nexus 6 is a good phone that's trapped in limbo. It's too big and too expensive for most people to afford, although you might want it, and doesn't match the premium devices from Samsung and Apple. just like the HTC Nexus 9 tablet then. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.